keys at once! Dogs and cats living together! Complete mayhem! I'm the Classical Nerd, and today we're talking about polytonality. Using two keys simultaneously is something that's found often outside of the Western tradition, but when we say polytonality, we're talking about its context using tonality, so a Western context. Using two keys at once is a pretty difficult thing to do and also, make it sound good, and so composers generally shied away from it, aside from these really short passages or certain humorous effects throughout the Baroque and Classical eras. For example, Heinrich Bieber's Battaglia contains a passage with a bunch of different instruments noodling along in different keys simultaneously to represent sort of chaos. While the finale of Mozart's A Musical Joke contains the horns and string quartet splitting up into cadences in a bunch of different keys. Both of these pieces are poking fun at amateur players, not intended to be serious whatsoever. And the Mozart's multi-layered in that he's not only poking fun at bad musicians, he's poking fun at bad composers. In the late Romantic and early 20th century, polytonality became more acceptable seemingly all at once. Karol Szymanowski's first string quartet has its finale in 4 keys at once. It's only due to Szymanowski's skill as a composer that he's able to pull this off without making it sound like complete and total mayhem. He was working in a really late Romantic context, but once you get into the 20th century, things really start to open up. Charles Ives was a big fan of raucous polytonality, throwing it into his pieces for certain passages at least, originating with his father's musical experimentation, where he would teach the young Ives to sing in one key and accompany himself in another. Bela Bartok was spicing up his Hungarian-flavored music by setting it in 2 keys, while Stravinsky was using bitonality in a biting way, and it really burst onto the scene with his ballet score, The Rite of Spring. The most interesting thing about the great composer's use of polytonality in this era is that they used it in totally different ways. Bartok's was more separated, where you can hear the individual key areas at once, whereas Stravinsky preferred a more overlapped and more dense style. More conservative composers looking to bring some spice into their music often reached for polytonality in less biting, less dissonant ways, and there are ways to do that. They used polytonality where they could, sneaking it into their music in ways that, if done right on first listen, actually don't sound polytonal at all. And even amongst composers who didn't use polytonality often or even at all, you can tell the techniques used by other composers snuck their way into their music. His variations included polymodality, which used distinctive pitch collections with the same tonal center to create 2 different moods, much in the same way. Polytonality can bring either serenity or biting dissonance, with its introduction and popularity bringing forth a new tool in the ever-expanding compositional toolbox.